Hey, what's up guys? So we're back with another video. Welcome to my 5th vlog now. I'm actually at Hustler Casino. I heard there's a good 5-5-10 game, so I decided to check it out. And I've got, of course, you guys have seen Hustler Casino live. This is where the magic happens. I'm expecting some fireworks at this game. I'm expecting a lot of people to make some fun plays, so I'm definitely ready to go, baby. Let's go. Hopefully we can catch some people slipping, and we can stack some donkeys here. Hopefully we can run better than last night too. All right, so last night we lost $1,400, and I know you guys are gonna ask, Jay, you're a poker player, how come you lost versus these fish? And that's true. That is very true. I should not be losing these guys, but the reality is, I actually only win about 53% of the time. So ultimately, that's how I make money. I minimize my losses. When I win big. When I lose, I win a little bit, and I'm completely done. All right, so 5-5 PLO. And it's 6-handed, and they're doing a double board bomb pot with every new player that comes to the table. And I'm actually down a ton of money in these bomb pots over the last several weeks because I've just ran absolutely horrible in them. But there's a ton of variance, so I'm not surprised. But I also know I have an edge over most of the players because most people tend to overplay their hands. For example, betting pot with naked 2-pair without backup, or just betting, with the nuts on one board without backup on either board, right? So there are just tons of turns of rivers that can make it hard for them to continue. And so there's definitely a lot of mistakes people are making. And so there's a lot of money to be won in these double board bomb pot games, as long as you can overcome the variance, which is the most difficult part. But I know eventually variance will return the favor, so I happily put in $20 to play as well. And what a first hand to look down at. We look down at double suited aces with the ace-4 of clubs and the ace-5 of spades. I mean, is there a prettier hand than this? So there's $120 in the middle, and we see another 2 good boards. The first flop is the 10-8-6 all spades. So we actually flop the second nut flush. The only thing that beats us is the 7-9 of spades for a straight flush, which is very unlikely. And the second board comes the King-Queen-9 with the King-9 of spades. So we flop an overpair with the nut flush draw on the second board. It gets checked around to us, and obviously we're betting pot here. We bet $120, and the button and the big blind both call. So now there's $480 in the middle, and my plan here is to bomb the turn as long as the first board doesn't pair. But I know how I run in these games. My gut feeling is telling me that with how I've been running, that board, the 10-8-6 board, is almost guaranteed to pair and screw us over. And that's exactly what happens because the turn comes in offsuit 10 of hearts. So now we no longer have the nuts on the first board. And on the second board, we just have one pair with only around 12% equity. Because pretty much all of our spades are dead. There's only 6 spades left in the deck because they're all on the first board, right? So I'm not loving this situation. Worst of all, the big blind leads pot for $480.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
I mean, come on, PLO. Now, if anyone has a full house on that first board, we are dead to 2 outs or 4% to hit an ace, and we're most likely not good on that second board. So frustratingly, I do end up folding here. The button goes all in, and the big blind calls. Now, we go to a showdown. The river comes a 7 of clubs on the first board, and the river for the second board comes an ace of clubs. They actually both end up showing Jack 10 for the flop straight on the second board, except the big blind shows a river full house 10-7. So he was actually bluffing on the first board, but he ended up getting lucky, which I think is actually a good play by him. I actually like it because it puts me in a really tough situation if I flopped a flush. But he ends up winning 3/4 of that pot, and if we did call, we would have lost pretty much our whole stack. So, oh well, you guys, that's how it goes. Hopefully, eventually, we do end up running good in these. On to the next hand. Now, just like Hold'em, I've made huge comebacks in PLO after starting off losing, so I'm confident that eventually my luck will turn around. I was actually in a private home game a few weeks ago. I was down to my last $300. I was all in with 9-9-7-5 on a 10-9-6 rainbow board, like 5 ways, versus pocket 10s and some other gut shot, I actually ended up hitting quads in that hand, and I ended up winning about 20K at the end of the night. So it can easily happen. You can easily make runs in PLO. There's more variance than Hold'em, but there's also more money to be won because players are making way more mistakes. So now we're playing regular Omaha, my bread and butter, and I am licking my chops. And I'm ready to eat some fish and chips, baby. So it gets limped around to us on the button, and we look down at King 10-10-7 with the 10-7 of clubs. Now, I think it's a good hand to limp in position, especially in a soft lineup. We could potentially hit a 10 for a top set with some backup, like a flush draw or a straight draw, but it's not connected enough to raise, plus we don't have a high suit in our hand. For example, if it was King 10-10-9 with the king high suit, we can easily isolate here. But now it's 4 ways to a flop, and it's a juicy one. It is the 5-5-10 with 2 spades. We flop the full house and the second nuts, and we only lose to pocket fives here. The small blind and big blind checks. In middle position, a very fishy player who's been pretty much playing 100% of his hands bets $30. Now, he can definitely have a 5 here. For example, a 5 without backup, just overplaying that would be a mistake because a lot of turns and rivers that can make it difficult for him. For example, if it comes runner-runner, flush, or runner-runner straight, then, I mean, what's he going to do, right? He's just left with 3 of a kind. But knowing him and his type of play, I know he can easily make that mistake. So, but I do not want to scare him away in case he has something like an overpair with the flush draw or just a naked flush draw and is bluffing. And he can even potentially fold a 5, putting us on a full house here, right? So I end up just calling the small blind and the big blind both fold. The turn is a 4 of hearts, so it doesn't change anything. And he actually continues betting $75. Now, I make the call once again, hoping he filled up or fills up on the river, and he continues betting so we can hopefully stack him for his entire stack, which is around $1,000. Come on, baby, let's see a good river. Please fill up. Please fill up. The river comes the ace of diamonds, which is actually a great card for us because if he has ace 5, there is no way he is giving this up. But this time, unfortunately, he does slow down. He checks, which is not a good outcome for us. But, you know, obviously it's time for us to bet big because all draws missed, all draws that we could have had, and I'm confident he's going to call me with any 5 here. So I actually end up betting around the size of the pot, which is around $260. He snap calls, and we end up winning a nice, chunky $770 pot. Let's go. Okay, now hopefully I can keep getting hands and make a nice run here. And this next hand is a very pretty one. This is one of my favorite hands to look down at, this type of hand. I look down at ace 5-5-8 double suited with the ace 5 of hearts and the 8-5 of clubs. Middle position limps in again. And this is definitely a hand we should be raising here since we're in late position. We have a nut suit, a pair, and they're all connected so we can potentially hit a straight, a set with the nut flush draw, a straight with the flush draw, 2 pair with the nut flush draw or a flush draw, or even, you know, other hands like, you know, combo draws, right? So I end up bumping it up to $35 here. The button behind me calls, the big blind calls, and the middle position fist calls as well. So if you've ever played PLO, this is pretty much how it's going to be in most games. If you raise, don't expect for many people to fold. So you better have a good position and some pretty damn good hands and know exactly which hands to raise. For example, you need hands with very good future playability, hands with high suits that are very connected, or else, you know, if you get a flop, chances are, if you don't have one of those hands, it's going to be very hard for you to continue, and you're just going to be bleeding a lot of money or making huge mistakes. So if you're not too familiar with pre-flop ranges, I would recommend JNandez PLO Mastermind. He has a pre-flop trainer. He has tons of videos that you guys can watch for, it's only like $100-200 a month, right? And it's well worth it because PLO is a great game these days. Like I said, I'm up almost 40K from PLO in the last just few weeks. Okay, so I'm expecting to play even higher stakes PLO in the future. Hopefully I can get to 2550, 5100 in Vegas. If I can grind those consistently, I can easily make $500,000 a year. But, you know, that's a little bit of ways, you guys. Now, let's get back to the hand. Okay, now it's 4 ways to a flop, and I'm hoping for a juicy one, like 2-2-5, you know, or hit something like one of those combination draws that I mentioned before. The flop is actually decent for us. It's the Queen 5-2 with 2 diamonds. Now, 4 ways being this deep with one player, I think it's okay to c-bet pot and fold if the deep stack player pots and gets it in. And then we can get it in versus everyone else who only have around $500 effective stacks. Because if the big stat repots us, the way he plays, I mean, he always has pocket queens. But I decided to play it safe and check here. It gets checked around, and the turn is another decent card. It's the Ace of Spades. So now there's 2 flush draws out there, and 3-4 a wheel gets there. But it gets checked around to us, so we most likely have the best hand here. So it's really time to start betting for protection. I end up betting $100, and I think I should have just bet pot $140 because all the draws are out there. But fortunately for me, everyone does fold, and I end up taking down a decent sized $140 pot. Hey, any win is a good win for me at this point, since I'm down around 10k in PLO over the last sessions. And now we look down at an even prettier hand. We look down at the King 9 of clubs and the Jack 10 of diamonds. Unfortunately, it gets folded to us in the small blind, and this is definitely good enough to raise from the blinds because it has 2 high suits. It's very well connected. There's a lot of boards. We can c-bet and continue turns and rivers with 2. So we bump it up to $40. The big blind folds, and the under the gun player who only has 175 left calls. Not the outcome I was looking for. I was hoping to get in a big pot with a big stack, but that's how it goes. Now, most likely, if we flop anything like a flush draw, a straight draw, or any top pair, we're going to put him all in, as his SPR, or stack to pot ratio, is so low. And the flop comes a good one for us. It's the 9-5-2 with 2 diamonds. So this is definitely one of those flops I was just talking about. And now it's time to put our plan into action. It's time to bet the size of the pot and essentially force him to go all in or fold. He takes a while, and I'm honestly not sure what he could have here, thinking that long with such a small stack. Maybe an overpair with no backup. Maybe a pair with an overpair, right? Like something like Queen, Queen 9 off. But eventually he does end up folding, and we win another small pot. Yay. Okay, so now we won a couple of small pots in a row, and now I'm hoping to finally win a large one. I feel like I'm overdue for a heater here. And in this next hand, under the gun player calls, middle position raises to 35, and we look down at 8-8-9-9 offsuit from the cutoff. Now this is definitely a call. Even though we don't have a suit, we still have 2 pairs in our hand that are connected, so we have a much higher chance at hitting 3 of a kind. We could potentially hit top set, and then we'd be golden, sets with straight draws, etc. If this was double suited, I would definitely 3-bet here. And I also looked it up in the PLO trainer, which I was talking about earlier. And this actually shows that you should be calling, and it's actually winning around 0.45 big blinds in the long run. So not a ton of big blinds, but it's still a profitable call pre-flop in this specific situation and position. But the big blind and under the gun calls as well. So now we're 4 ways to a flop, and it's a decent one. It's the 10 of spades, the 8 of clubs, and the 7 of diamonds. So we actually flop middle set with the straight draw. Plus, we block straights like 6-9 or Jack-9, so it's less likely one of those players has that. It gets checked around to us, and I actually end up checking here. Because it's 4 ways to a flop, I just felt like I was going to be in a very tricky situation if I had 1 or 2 callers on a lot of turns. But in the solver, 3 ways, it's actually a mix between a check and a half-pot bet. Because most of the time it is a bet because we block the straights and we need to protect from random lower straight draws or gut shots like Queen Jack, 5-6-7, 4-5-6. But we end up checking here, and it gets checked around, and the turn is a 10 of spades. The under the gun player leads out very small 1/3 pot to $50, and I'm very confused but also concerned on what this could be. I've never played with him before, but he seems confident. But him betting 1/3 pot on a lockdown board into 3 other players? Yeah, I'm getting a little bit concerned here. But, you know, the cutoff calls, and we are forced to call a small river bet because we have position, we have a full house, and we do see a river. The river is a 5 of hearts. And unfortunately, he does not stop. He bets nearly pot to $225. Oh my god. This spot sucks. The cutoff folds, and now we lose to 10-7, pocket 10s, 10-8, 10-5. We only really beat pocket 7s, but I don't feel like he'd be doing that this big. I don't see any bluffs he can have here because we block 7-8, right? In case he was doing it with blockers. So I actually end up folding, and I did not like it. I did not like giving this hand up. I feel like with pocket 7s, he would make it a little bit smaller to try and get called by straights. I really feel like he was targeting hands like mine, like pocket 7s and pocket 8s. So I end up folding, unfortunately, and we end up losing, you know, a decent sized pot. Now in this next hand, it gets folded around to us, and we're on the button with king, queen, jack, 3 with 3 clubs. Now, like I mentioned, I've been doing some work with the PLO pre-flop trainer, and this is definitely a raise on the button. Even though we have 3 to a suit, we have 3 high connecting cards and a high suit, plus we have position and a significant post-flop edge over the small blind and the big blind. So we raise it up to $25, and both the small blind and the big blind call, unfortunately. So now our hand, the value of our hand goes down significantly 3 ways. It's completely fine 2 ways, but now there's, you know, way more boards that can run out. It's just going to make it difficult for us. So the flop comes queen 10-8 rainbow. The small blind checks and the big blind bets $60 and is nearly all in. Now with top pair and an open-ended straight draw, we cannot possibly fold versus the short stack because he can potentially have straight draws himself, 2 pairs that we're a favorite against, or wraps that we dominate. So we actually end up calling, and the small blind calls as well. So now there's $240 going to a turn, and unfortunately it's the 4 of diamonds, and we completely whiff the turn. Come on, PLO. Give us a break here. The small blind checks and the big blind goes all in for $20, and of course we have to call, and the small blind calls as well. So now there's $300 in the middle, and we are praying for some help, and it's actually a decent card for us that might give us the winning hand here. It's the king of spades. The small blind checks, and now there's no point in betting into a dry side pot as we're only going to get called by hands that beat us, like sets or straights. So we end up checking, hoping to scoop the pot with top 2, but instead the big blind flips over jack 9 of spades and 7-3 offsuit for a flop straight. Come on, poker gods. It is so standard to let him flop a straight after calling with that trash pre, especially being that short. That is just a negative EV call pre-flop.
Come on, man.
Not a huge pot, but it would have been a nice one to scoop. We end up losing a $300 pot there. Hoping to get back into the win column, I look down at a pretty queen, queen, jack 9 with the jack 9 of clubs. Having an overpair with 2 connected cards and a suit, this is definitely good enough to raise from the cutoff, so I bump it up to $30. The button calls, the small blind calls, and the big blind calls. Like I said, it's at least 4 people to a flop in PLO if you raise, which is why it's such a heavy showdown game where you simply have to make hands at the end of the day. Now, hoping to hit a good flop like a straight or a set with the flush draw, I'm doing my best to gather my key just like at Dragon Ball Z. And it works, because the flop comes queen 6-5 with 2 clubs. We flop top set with the 3rd nut flush draw, and when it gets checked around to us, being 4 ways, I want to protect my hand from straight draws plus higher flush draws, potentially stack lower sets with straight draws or lower flush draws, or just make higher flush draws pay, like king, king with the king of clubs, king X of clubs. So we pot the flop to $120.
the button folds, the small blind folds, and now I'm shocked here because the big blind, who's actually pretty tight and a decent player post-flop, repots the $600 almost immediately.
Shit just went from 0 to 100 real fucking quick.
What is going on here? I'm a little bit concerned because I know he's a good player. He's probably not doing this with the lower set. He probably would have tanked much longer and probably just flatted. He probably has a big combo draw here. But I don't care because we have the effective nuts with the redraw. We're ahead of any hand here, you guys. And we immediately snap shove for our rest, $1,050. Really? Eventually he does make the call, and we decide to run it twice. The turn comes a deuce of clubs, and now he asks if we have a flush, which is good news, I think. So I say I have a jack high flush, and he goes, I have a queen high flush. Are you serious? The turn is a king of diamonds, so we lose the first one now to a queen high flush, and now we're hoping to just chop. The second board, the turn comes with 3 of clubs. Come on, you guys. The river is a 9 of hearts. We do not fill up. He tables over queen 8 of clubs with the 5 of hearts and the 7 of diamonds for top 2 with the higher flush draw and a straight draw. And versus that hand, we were only a very small favorite, potentially only a 3 to 5% favorite. So we were basically flipping since he has all of our boat outs, so it's less likely we fill up. Plus, all of his draws were live. Wow. Just the worst possible thing that could have happened, with the only player that had us covered, ends up stacking us on both boards for a lost $1,000 in this game after we cooler him post-flop. That really sucks. Aww. Now, after this hand, I get my steak that I ordered before this hand, of course, and what do you know? The steak is absolutely cold. Come on, Hustler Casino. They just had to rub it in by giving me a cold steak after losing my entire stack. Fuck you. No, but it's cool because I complained and they ended up giving me a new one with fries and is actually pretty bomb. So you did make up for it, Hustler, but I still want revenge for losing at your PLO game. You better invite me back to Hustler Casino Live to play 5100 with all the fish. So I will be back.
Alright guys, so unfortunately we just busted. We're down $1,000. I was thinking about buying in for $500 again, but after that hand I just was not feeling it. Definitely would not be playing my A game after that. So since I'm on a little bit of a PLO downswing, I'm down like 9K, but I'm still up about 39K in the last couple months, making $270 an hour. Most of my earnings has come from PLO, so it's a pretty standard downswing. It'll just take some time to get out, but you know, tomorrow I'm probably gonna play some 5-5-10 no limit again. But damn it, why did I play PLO? Oh my god, that was a terrible mistake. But hey, it's all right. Back tomorrow. Gonna stick with my rules. Only one buy-in, and I'm gonna go home, study, work on my vlog, work on some things, and I will be back with you guys tomorrow playing 5-5-10 no limit. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully we have some better luck tomorrow. All right, so I'll catch you guys later.